Welcome back. Now, this week, Johannesburg City Power agreed to repay 3.2 billion rand in disputed debt to Eskom over the next 4 years. However, the electricity minister did concede that challenges of billing and pricing structures in the city were not unique to Johannesburg and reflect broader issues. Also this week, Joburg City Power rolled out a free basic electricity program which aims to provide eligible customers with free electricity units each month. To talk about this in more detail, we're joined now by the Chief Commercial Officer of City Power, Thami Mathiso. Mr. Mathiso, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and a very good evening to you. And I want us to start with that relieving part, the free basic electricity program. Tell us a little bit about that and who is eligible.
Good evening to you, Masa, and good evening to the viewers at home. The free basic electricity, it's actually an awareness campaign that City Power is actually running for all eligible customers. So it's those are indigent customers. There is a threshold of an income per household of about 8,000. So anyone who earns per household an income of less than 8,000 rands per month, they can actually apply for this program and they will be able to receive free basic electricity.
And how long would this last for? For what period?
So this program is actually available the whole financial year. So for customers who are eligible, so what has actually happened currently is that the city has extended. Initially, it was 6 months. So the city has actually extended the period to 12 months to make sure that people come through. But even after 12 months, customers should be able, if their indigent status has actually not changed, they should be able to come back to the city and be able to and apply for this free basic electricity.
And it will come in quite handy with these cold days and winter months. But I want to talk about City Power having to repay this 3.2 billion rand in debt to Eskom over 4 years. Before we got to that point even, Eskom had to take City Power to court in attempts to get this debt settled. There were also threats made of electricity supply being interrupted for the city of Joburg as well. How does City Power get to a point where you're billions of rands in debt?
Yeah, so I think we're quite excited about the outcome of the minister's intervention between City Power and Eskom. This is actually a dispute that dates back maybe from 2018, and we have actually been sitting down with Eskom, trying to resolve the matter and some of the issues which were a problem in terms of the application of the tariff and other aspects. And I think when Eskom took City Power to court, City Power had actually proposed to Eskom to say, can we get somebody independent? In fact, we actually submitted names of different academias and people who are technical to actually assist in terms of quantifying and looking what could be the problem. And I think the minister's intervention was quite great, and also with our executive mayor coming through there. So I think the 3.2 billion settlement comes quite handy. There was about 800 million that Eskom had to forgo based on some of the dispute discussions that were mediated by Sanedi.
And also, while I have you as well, Mr. Mathiso, we want to talk about, of course, those media reports that have come out about City Power, just to also get clarity from your side as City Power, what actually happened. Because clearly there are challenges that are self-imposed and there are those external challenges as well, such as vandalism. But let's talk about those that are in your control. You must have already seen that News 24 report last week alleging millions of rands that City Power allegedly spent on consultants for things like business breakfasts and brand strategies, and essentially outsourcing duties that you already have staff and executives who you're paying to do, implying and indicating wasteful expenditure. Did City Power, in fact, pay consultants for these business breakfasts and brand strategies, as is alleged in this media report?
Yeah, in fact, if you look into our social media and our media team resorted into sharing some of those questions directly on social media, that came out. Because I agree, in isolation, if a report like that is actually published without the response of City Power, it then looks like there is definitely something wrong. But in terms of our responses, I think we've responded to Media 24 in relation to what they've raised. City Power does spend money because on consultants, based on the type of organization that we are in, we can actually note that we are actually the business of electricity distribution is actually in transition. There is new energy sources that are coming through into the mix. There's quite a new opportunities of electric vehicles that are coming through. And an organization like City Power has to put itself abreast by using a consultant who come and actually not only look into the organization internally, but from external point of view. And on the basis of that, I think from City Power's point of view, we have agreed that money has been spent towards the budgeted money has been spent towards consultants, but not the ridiculous amounts that has actually been outlined there.
How much has been spent, and were there any duplications of these works?
Yeah, so the issue of duplication of work, if you say we've got an executive whose work is to put a business plan on the impact of just energy transition for the organization, I think it's disingenuous, because that is a new concept that is actually coming. And I think it is for City Power to actually be able to use the consultants for the activities that they require external view on. But the day-to-day running of the organization and the development of strategy in terms of our normal KPI, I think that is actually done by executives, and it's actually developed by executive. If you can look into what we have, our business plan, it's almost a 200-page document which is developed by the executive to make sure that they speak to KPIs. How will the organization impact the citizens of Joburg? So that document is developed by the executive. But when it comes to new concept, just energy transition, electric vehicles, solar issues, you really need somebody, because we do not have that at this moment. You need somebody from external to be able to provide that knowledge service for the organization to be able to map its way forward.
Yeah, and just quickly as we wrap that part up before we move along to the other part of questionings that I do have. So there was no money spent on business breakfasts or brand management to these consultants?
Yeah, so specifically on those ones, I think whatever that was spent, I can assure you now, it would have been based on the just energy transition aspects and the work that City Power had to do, not breakfast.
Not breakfast.
I think City Power has its own. Yeah, so City Power has its own canteen. I can tell you now, City Power has its own canteen. I don't think there's been money spent on breakfast. In terms of knowledge based service, I can tell you now, as a transitioning organization, we definitely use consultants.
Yeah. So moving along from that as well, there also seem to be just broader concerns about being billed differently. You also touched on this as well when you're talking about the minister's intervention. Could you please explain to us why that happens and what are the challenges when it comes to tariff structures, particularly during the winter season that we find ourselves in now?
Yeah. So basically, I think from our side, City Power and Eskom builds us on what they call megaflex, and megaflex in its nature, it's a time of use seasonal tariff. So you get exposed to, as an entity, we get exposed to different tariffs in winter months and different tariffs in summer months. And I can tell you a peak tariff on average, Eskom would probably charge City Power about 6 rands, whereas City Power passed through to the customers an average of around 3 rands 50. So there are certain months, certain times of the day on a winter period where the tariff is quite expensive. And I think these are the discussions that were City Power was frank with Eskom, considering even some of the load shedding impact that we had at that particular time. And we had to go through those tariff structures, look into the consumption that was built on different time zones, on different seasons, to make sure that the bill is actually accurate.
Would it also, in the meantime, help residents to check the time of use of the electricity as well and the kinds of appliances?
And I think that one of the things that we as City Power are communicating is that, especially for customers who've got solar PVs for them, those are customers where they can take advantage of our registration program and register. And in that way, they'll be able to be billed on a time of use. Like if you're on a time of use, you literally can control how much we bill you at whatever time. And I think the miscommunication, especially from City Power's side, that is actually taking place is that when we register customers, we penalize them, and of which is not true. So the advantage of the customer is that if they've got a solar and they move over to a time of use tariff, they will be able to, during the day when it is standard, use their solar system, and during peak, rely on their batteries, and therefore save electricity at that part at those different times. So I think the time of use tariff is actually advantageous for people who've got their own generations that they can actually deploy on times where the tariff is expensive, and be able to use the grid where the tariff is actually less expensive.
Thami Mathiso, thank you so much for joining us this evening and also clarifying a few of those issues as well.